Greetings and shalom. So this will be part 3, Christian Stud debates the Hebrew Israelites. I've already done a part 1, a part 2, but in this video we're going to delve into the Blue Letter Bible and we're going to look at certain verses and put the pieces of the puzzle together, also with the 1611 KJV Bible. And this is why they had to take out certain scriptures, because when you know that Paul took from the Tanakh, the Torah, this is where he was getting his information from, and then using parables and analogies and so forth to the scattered or the uncircumcised of Israel, aka the Gentiles or the 10 tribes or Ephraim. So what this Christian fails to realize is she doesn't give any context why Paul was talking to the quote unquote Gentiles, but in her stance, it's Gentiles of the other nation, non-Israelites. But we're going to prove that Paul was strictly talking to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So, of course, we're going to focus on the Greek captivity. So right here it states, the Bible includes several passages that describe the Israelites' captivity by the Greeks, including 1 Maccabees, Joel 3, 6-7, and the Septuagint. So anyone who has a 1611 KJV Bible, you can find the history of what happened to the Israelites in the Greek captivity. Okay. So right here it states, First Maccabees describes the persecution of the Israelites by Antiochus IV, a Seleucid king who set up an altar to Zeus in the Jewish temple. Joel 3, 6-7 describes how the people of Judah and Jerusalem were sold to the Greeks and taken far from their homeland. Okay, so the explanation, the Israelites were taken captive by the Greeks during the period of the Greek rule over the Judeans. Okay, and the Greeks are from the lineage of Japheth. Okay, before Rome or the Caucasian Edomite took over, the land was occupied by the Etruscans. Those were Javites or Japheth, and those were people of color, by the way. So now we're going to go back to Galatians 3, and we're going to start at verse 28, because this Christian or this stud failed to realize that the Israelites went into a Greek captivity as stated in Joel 3 and 6, but also in the book of Maccabees, which she probably has never read. So to understand Paul's, ministry or his travels, he traveled to certain lands where he knew that the Grecians or, parts of the southern kingdom and northern kingdom as well, an intermixture of both, were in certain lands worshiping and doing heathenistic customs of the other nations. So it states, there is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither bond nor free, there is neither male nor female, for ye are all one in Christ Jesus. And if ye be Christ, then ye be Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. And we know that the Israelites were heirs to the promise. Right here it states, outline of biblical usage, a Hellenist, one who imitates the manners and customs of the worship of the Greeks and use the Greek tongue. Number 2, used in the New Testament of the Judeans born in foreign lands and speaking Greek. Okay. The Gentile Israelite foreigners. Okay. Right here it states Hellenist or Greek speaking Jew or Grecian. Okay. And right here at the Strong's G1675, it gives you scriptures or whatnot. New Testament, the New Covenant of the Judeans or Jews born in foreign lands and speaking Greek, Grecian Jews, Acts 11 and 20, and so forth. I'll be looking at this book again, Zondervan's Compact Bible Dictionary. So right here it says Greece, Grecians. Grecia is Greece, the home of the Hellenes. Greeks and Grecians, however, are to be distinguished. Greeks are generally those of Hellenistic race, Acts 16 and 1, 18 and 4, and probably John 12 and 20. But the word may be used to indicate non-Jews, foreigners, and aliens, Romans 1 and 16. Grecians were Greek-speaking Jews. Okay, so that lines up with scripture. Folk of the dispersion from areas predominantly Greek. We know the Greeks were Japheth, okay? We know the Greeks were Japheth. Acts 6:1, 9 and 29. Okay. So now we're at Romans chapter 1. We're going to start at verse 16. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ or the HaMashiach, for it is the power of the Most High unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first, or the Judean, and also to the Greek. Meaning what? Those Israelites that were scattered, Gentile Israelite foreigners, right? Through the Greek captivity, okay? They're coming back into the knowledge and wisdom of who they are. It also states, Greece and its associated island groups form the SE end of southern Europe's mountain system, a rugged peninsula and archipelago not rich in fertile or arable land, which was the terminus of a southward movement of the Indo-European speaking tribes who became the Greek people. Okay, now don't get thrown off by the word Indo-European, because they like to lump the Aboriginal peoples of those lands, which were people of color, and lump them with the Caucasian race or whatnot. These tribes of their predecessors had established ordered life in the peninsula and islands by the 12th century before Christ. Their civilization vanished before the end of the second millennium in a dark age. So when they say dark age, that's letting you know that they're talking about an Aboriginal or people of color. Dark ages has a double connotation. They're talking about the rule or the black or so-called black rulership back then, because I mean, people of color represent the majority of the world's population. Pale and white skin does not. Okay. Of destruction and invasion occasioned by further waves of wandering tribes, just as Celts, we know the Celts were people of color, Roman, Saxon, Dane, Norman, ripples of the same folk movement of related peoples made a succession of construction and destruction in Britain. Okay. And if you want to find further information about those names of the Saxons, Danes, Normans, those are all people of color or so-called black, believe it or not. We have books like The Negro Rulers, Scotland and British Isles, African Presence. We know this is an Afrocentric book, but our peoples were in those lands. Origin of the Anglo-Saxon race, Symbolisms of Heraldry, and of course my favorite, Ancient and Modern Britons, Volume 1 and 2. Also, this is another good book too as well, Nature Knows No Color Line. And of course it shows you the nobility of the Negroes in Germany, France, and other places as well. Okay. So this notion that we all came from the west parts of Africa, which some Israelites believe, but that's not true. I mean, they got to look at the Jacobite gleanings. They got to look at the 100 Years' Wars, the 30 Years' Wars. A lot of our people came from Europe. This is why we have a lot of these ancient surnames. And key word, I say surnames. I don't say slave names, because that's the narrative. Once you give them that slave narrative, in a sense, then they have the origin to your whole history, when it's really the other way around. But I'm not going to get too much into that. So back to the original lesson. In this book up here too, I forgot. This book, Black Rulers, Military Leaders, Clergy, Moors Who Saved Medieval Europe, Virginia's Colonial Soldiers, another good book. The complexion and description, it's not what you think. Real good book. Right here, out of 4 centuries of chaos emerged a complex of peoples on island and mainland who were called the Greeks. Okay. Right here, Hellenist Jews or Judeans who made Greek their tongue, and with it often adopted Greek ideas and practices. Acts 6:1, 9 and 29. And now we're at the book, the Apocrypha, First Maccabees. Right here it states, and it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, We know Alexander was described as what? The he-goat, the Edomite, or the Caucasian. The Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece. Okay? And made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth. And this is what they naturally do. I mean, there's nothing new under the sun, right? I'm talking about the Caucasian, or the so-called white man. And went through to the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, like they do in the Americas and everywhere else. They take people's history, and then when our people wake up, then they want to get mad at us and say we taking their history. Hypocrites. So much that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. And he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries and nations and kings who became tributaries unto him. And after these things he fell sick and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died, and his servants bare rule every one in his place. And after his death they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. Okay, these people are wicked, man. So now we're at Job chapter 9, verse 24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked, he that covereth the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? So obviously, Alexander the Great, the Macedonian or the Edomite, descendant of Esau, was in rule. This was the Caucasians' first rulership through Alexander the Great, or the freak, I should say. Verse 10, and there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, I'm pronouncing it right, son of Antiochus the king, who had been in a hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. Now we know that the Israelites went to the Greek captivity, right? And in those days went there out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us, for since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinance of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem, according to the customs of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised, keyword, uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. Okay, so this was Paul was talking about the uncircumcised and the circumcised. Okay, you had Israelites that were circumcised, following the law, you know, and in the heart too, in the heart as well. It's not just following the law. You have to, you have to be circumcised in the heart as well. Okay, because you can not eat pork and still be wicked and do everything else under the sun, right? So now we're going to skip down to 41. We're going to skip the verse 41. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, kind of like America, right? And everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion, and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath. For the king had sent letters by messengers into Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days. and pollute the sanctuary and holy people, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh, unclean beast. But I thought the Christians say you can eat pork, right? Verse 48, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised, there's that word again, and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation, to the end they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. Let's read that again. To the end they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. Verse 50, and whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die. Verse 53, and drove the Israelites into secret places, even wheresoever they could flee for succor. Now the 15th day of the month, Kasu, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar, and builded idol altars throughout the cities of Judah on every side, and burnt incense at the doors of their houses and in the streets. And when they had rent in pieces the books of the law which they found, they burnt them with fire. And whosoever was found with any of the book of the testament, meaning what covenant, or if any consented to the law, the king's commandment was that they should put him to death. Okay. Verse 60, at which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised, and they hanged the infants about their necks, okay, and rifled their houses, and slew them that had circumcised them. Howbeit many in Israel were fully resolved and confirmed in themselves not to eat any unclean thing. But the Christians will tell you that Paul's dream or vision says they can eat whatever they want to eat. Wherefore they choose rather to die, that they might not be defiled with meats, and that they may not profane the holy covenant. So then they died. And there was a very great wrath upon Israel. Okay. No wonder they took all this out. Because you got the idiotic Christians don't like to read and study shit and justify, one or two scriptures, and, oh, you're cherry picking.